Hey friends, Megan McIntosh here. Welcome to this video. It seems like there's something on my screen. I think it's okay. I don't know. Maybe it's on the inside of the screen. Welcome to this video. I'm going to be talking about some more coaching strategies and how to help your client get to the root of their issues or their problems, and how you can do that and what kind of things that you can say that help people get to the root of their issues, what they're focusing on. So this is more if you're someone that's already a coach and or maybe you want to coach yourself and you are really having a hard time getting yourself through a problem, you're sort of at a standstill and it's just really hard to overcome something and you're not really sure how to do it. So this is gonna be something that I'm gonna walk you through. This is something I did with a client recently, and it really, it takes time and it's kind of tiring in a sense because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, digging deep. But when you learn how to do this, it really, I don't know why I'm bothered by the way my tripod is right now. Okay, that's better. I felt like I was hardly any of the screen. So yeah, okay, also too, I got this cool new book that I'm going to talk about really briefly called The Art of Believing on Purpose by Bev Aaron. She's the deep dive coach. And so I actually got two coaching books recently. This one, and I got one on trauma-informed coaching. So this one. I just got this today. I think I'm going to get the other one tomorrow. So I've gone Amazon crazy the last couple of days. I don't know if you're like that. I'm not usually Amazon crazy. I have Amazon Prime and I barely use it. But sometimes I'll just get in the mood and I'll just buy a whole bunch of stuff. And this kind of spurred on because I got a sliver in my foot or a piece of glass, I don't know, and it's still not out, and it's in the bottom of my foot, so I really can't walk on it right now until I get it out. I've been soaking it, and so I'm basically looking up home remedies to deal with this, and so every day I'm getting a new shipment. I'm getting Band-Aids, getting this splinter thing that I saw online. I'm just getting everything new, and then I was looking at the books. I'm like, oh, I want to get these books because I was thinking about it. So I ended up getting this, trying to get stuff for my splinter, and now I'm getting books because we're in lockdown right now, so I have no desire to go to the hospital just because it's just a small splinter or a piece of glass, and I know it'll eventually come out, but if I don't take care of it, it could get deeper and worse. So fingers crossed in the next few days it just comes out on its own, or with tea tree oil. I bought tea tree oil. I bought everything. Epsom salts. I'm like, something's going to get this out. Something's going to get this bitch out. All right. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about an excerpt from The Art of Believing on Purpose by Bev Aaron, because this is something that I actually done through yoga, but she really explains it really well, and it's about finding the pause. Now, in yoga, I don't know if it's Swami Satchidananda I read it in, but it was in a yoga teaching where we do this kind of same thing, and I've actually done a video somewhere on my YouTube channel from years ago where I talk about this concept. But sometimes you learn a concept and you practice it, but then someone else really explains it even better. So I saw this and I thought about it, and it just reminded me of this concept, and it's about that pause between, and she says between a stimulus and response, there's a pause. There's a space. In that space, it's our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Actually, that's from Rollo May. It's a quote she's putting in here. And so she's saying, can you find that space between stimulus and response? And it's important because it's what makes us human. And it's the idea behind Pavlov's dog where, he's convinced psychologists go from stimulus to response, right? Where you see the food and you salivate, or you get yelled at and you yell back. But what she's saying and what yoga has taught us is the idea that there's a thought that stimulates the response and it creates a feeling which determines our response. And if we have that pause in there, we can actually do something that maybe we don't regret, or change a different action so that it's different than what we would normally do. So I'm just going to read off. This is on page 20 of this book. You can get it on Amazon. That's where I got it. And it's, for instance, as in, I deserve a treat. You know, what's the feeling? Maybe I feel self-righteous. I'm going to salivate and eat it, right? So sometimes you just want the treat. And so you can, and this is something that I taught in another YouTube video where I talked about, you know, helping yourself with emotional eating, is you might want something and you're going to definitely go get it. But if you want something, pause. You might say, do I really want this? Is this, you know, 10 out of 10? Is this chocolate cake a 10 out of 10 worth eating? Yes or no. And if it is, great. Then you say, I do feel like I deserve this. I do want this, right? I feel it. And then you eat it. Or you can actually think, hey, I deserve a treat. And then you might say, actually, am I really hungry? Am I just doing this as an emotional response to deal with my stress, or just because I'm bored, or whatever it is? And then you can feel neutral about it, and then you can ignore the food. So this is just an idea of how it can be. And she has another example as you might get yelled at, and then you might think, how dare she yell at me? And then you might feel angry and you might yell back. The other response could be you get yelled at, you think, this is all about her. You know, this is her issue. This is what she's dealing with. It has nothing to do with me. You can feel detached, and then you might walk away. And she says, or you might feel virtuous and give her a hug. So I love that lesson. And can you find the pause? I started reading this, and it just reminded me of the yoga teaching, and it just reiterated that idea. And that is one way that you can help your clients if they're in any type of situation where they have that fight or flight action where they immediately want to react. But I want to also give you another tool that you can use, and this is something that I was working with my client on the other day, is she's going through some family issues and some deep trauma in family relationships. And while we talked and I listened to her a lot of the time, I was really wanting to dive deep into what is the core wound, like what was the trauma from. And I wasn't saying those words in a sense, like let's dive deep and find out the trauma. It was more just asking questions, right, to find out, okay, and thinking of different perspectives, right? And you can do this by saying, well, how does that feel? But, sometimes people don't know how they feel, or sometimes they don't want to move beyond where they are, right? And they're just going to say, I don't know, and this is how I feel, and this is it. I can't change how I'm feeling, right? And sometimes you get to that stopping point where someone really can't turn the corner on how they're feeling, and they're just like blocked. They're just like, sorry, that's how it is, and I'm done. But if you feel like there's something there that they can move past, and you believe it, but they just don't believe it, or you know that deep down they want to move past and they want to make that change, but they're just not doing it because of stubbornness, or they're not doing it because they feel burned, or they have lack of trust, whatever the reason, you can actually dig deep by saying, well, if you did know what to do, or if you did decide to have a different perspective, what would that be? And that's something that I really like to use. Is a lot of times people say, well, I don't know, and I just can't do it. Well, if you did know what to do, what would that be, right? And just asking them to think differently about it so the emotions are out of it, so that you're almost asking them to come up with a solution without using their emotions, because oftentimes when they're in this place of bottleneck, of feeling stuck, it's because their emotions are overwhelmed and they just are at their breaking point. And so by getting them to actually get out of their emotions to help solve the answer, you can do that by saying, if you did know what to do, or if you wanted to feel something differently, how would you feel, right? And then what is another interesting thing is when you start talking to a client and you start listening to them and not being judgmental as a coach, but more just listening and asking more questions, what happens is the more questions you ask, you're able to dive deeper into the situation. And sometimes you get to the bottom of the situation, right? This happened to me the other day where I was just really literally asking questions about the situation and asking them in different ways, because I just felt like we hadn't come down to what the main issue was. And as a coach, you might know what the main issue is, or you have an idea, but and maybe the client even knows, but it's just so subconscious that it's hard to get. And so what happens is if they feel like, well, I just this, right? If they just feel like, well, this is how it is and this is what it is, right? And I just can't because of this. Or if you feel like it's like almost like at this ruptured point where they've given up, or this point where they're in the discussion with you where they've just like thrown their shoulders back, and maybe, I mean, you might not see it because you might be on a phone call with them and not over Zoom, but they're just saying a statement of what they believe to be fact, but it's actually their beliefs, right? It's their beliefs about the situation. It's their feelings about the situation. It's not really a fact, right? If whenever you're feeling something, yes, it's a feeling that you're actually feeling it, but it doesn't mean that the situation, if they want to change it, or the situation can't be resolved. Anything can be resolved if you want it to be resolved, and if it's an issue with more than one person, it can be resolved if all people want to like actually look at it differently and decide. Actually, the first step is like deciding you want to actually do something about a situation, right? If there's a roadblock on anybody's side, then it's going to be harder to do that. And this person, basically what happened is they spoke, they said something, I'm not going to say what it is out of privacy, but they basically said something where they said, well, I can never do this because of this, right? Or I can never forgive them because of this, or whatever it is, right? And from there, what happened is when you get your client to speak out loud, the thing that is so heart-wrenching, the thing that is so deep within, that is the trauma part of, what really maybe started everything, the kernel of it, why they felt it. Sometimes when you get them to speak it out loud, it actually lessens the power of it. And they actually, like, oftentimes, like, you can ask of as a coach, like, now that you've said that out loud, how do you feel, right? And actually, they might say, well, I still feel it, or, but oftentimes what happens, you can ask them to say it again. Can you repeat how you're feeling? And what happens is it lessens almost like the power of it, the static of it. So they actually noticed it themselves when they said it out loud. They literally said, oh, wow, that doesn't feel, that's not holding power over me. I actually feel maybe I can change that thought. I can do something about it. It was almost like they released the power over it because it was so deeply ingrained in them that they thought it was truth. But then when they said it out loud, they realized, okay, like, I'm saying this out loud, but is it really a big deal? No, I can actually overcome this. And this has happened to me in my own, like, being coached by my own coaches, where I feel a certain way, or I'm feeling sticky about a situation, or I'm just feeling upset about something. When I actually say it out loud and I actually, like, look at it, like, like you're looking at an object, you're like, let me see. Let me look at this thought. Let me really look at this thought. Let me look at this thought inside and out. Is that true? If you put it out there and you write it down or you say it out loud, you're like, actually, I can choose to believe that might have been true, or I can kind of feel it, but I can actually choose to believe that I can overcome that and I can actually change that thought. It happens. It is something that is almost like a breakthrough moment when you're with a client when that happens, and it's very exciting. And, there's probably still work to do on it, but once they break through that initial thing, and once they break through that thought being real, what happens for them is a whole other cascade of emotions comes through, right? And so you might even want to just like pause with them and listen with them and say, is there anything else you want to share? And also what you can have them journal after. And usually what happens is they then you can ask them follow-up questions and say, wow, that was amazing. That was a breakthrough. How do you feel now after you've expressed it out loud and it doesn't hold the same power over you? And you can ask them questions, whatever comes to you about that and how they feel next. And that will then even give it less power, right, when they're talking about it. Because it happens in anything. In real world life, instead of fake life, what we're talking about, just kidding. I have this, one of my friends and we were going through a breakup at the same time. Sorry, this is gonna distract me. It's like one of those bubble butt wrap bags where you can like pop the bubbles, and I'm like eyeing it up. I gotta hide it because there we go. I'm gonna be like, oh, I want to pop those bubbles. We were both going through a breakup at the same time, and every night after work, we would talk to each other on the phone briefly, sometimes an hour, sometimes just briefly. Maybe not every night, but like a lot, maybe 4 times a week. And we talked about it so much, our breakups and how we felt, and like reiterated. Eventually it lost its power. Over us, and we both got over those subsequent breakups by being able to talk it through and get through it together and just opening up about it. And so sometimes when something's really bothering you, it's a lot of work to talk about it. It's a lot of work to open up that wound and, go through it with someone. And like, it's exhausting. Believe me, I know how exhausting it can be because I do this a lot. But eventually when you get to the other side, it does lessen the pain. It lessens the hold that issue has over you. So that's all I have for today. I hope that was helpful. I hope you liked a little bit of that coaching and it made sense to you. I feel like when you're coaching, sometimes these ideas just form where you really know what to do with your client at that time. And sometimes it's just really about asking questions and holding them and having them say things out loud that maybe they don't want to say out loud, or maybe that just come to them, and having them express how they're feeling. And be okay with those feelings, however it comes out. If it comes out as anger, if it comes out of, rage, if it comes out as just like any type of pain they're experiencing, and you being able to hold them in whatever emotion they're in, even if you're like, wow, that's an intense emotion for that experience, if you're able to hold them through that emotion and not judge them and just be there as a neutral party, what happens is they're able to express it, and eventually it calms them down, and it loses that intensity of the emotion. That's what I like to do. I like to hold my client, have no judgment when they're telling me things. Doesn't matter if I'm not there as a judge, someone to judge them. I'm there as a witness. I'm there as someone who is listening, and someone who is really trying to work with them as a co-creator to help them co-create a new reality and diffuse the emotion, to help them go through what they're going through and feel it with them, but almost as that watcher. Like, not like you don't want to also be like cold and just like there's like, I got it, like that is like also can make them feel like not connected to you. So it's almost like you're there listening and giving feedback, but not feedback in the way that you're agreeing with them or feedback in the way that you're listening to them. You're just giving acknowledgement. You're there for them. You're listening with 100% presence and no judgment, and so that your client doesn't feel weird when they're crying, or your client doesn't feel weird when they're angry or upset about something. You're just there listening and understanding and saying, yeah, that must have been tough. Yeah, I can hear where you're coming from. That's a tough thing. Yeah, tell me more about that. And you're really just there to witness and to help them, to fill up that space, so that you're there with presence, holding them through that emotional time that they're in, whatever emotion that chooses to come through. And it's a blessing to be able to do this type of work. So on that note, I'm going to get off. I'm hungry. I need food. And if you're interested in coaching with me, you know that you can always reach out. I don't bite. Yes, I do. No, I don't. I don't know why I'm saying that. Oh, gosh. And, what I focus on, my methodology is I have coactive coaching background. If you've never heard of the Coactive Training Institute, it used to be called the Coactive Coaching Institute. But they have a great way where people are known as being creative, resourceful, and whole. So my clients come to me and I already know them as creative, resourceful, and whole, which means that they already know what to do, but they also need someone to whatever they're going through, right? So if you go to Coactive Coaching, that's where I actually learned how to coach. But I also do mentorship because I teach a lot of business and I do a lot of business coaching. And so what I do is I use the mindset coaching I have and the collective coaching models that I've learned over time. And I've also learned from other coaching disciplines as well. I know Bev Aaron, she was trained at the Life Coach School. There's a lot of different schools and a lot of different coaching methodologies you can use. And I also take some of my yogic background. So I have learned a lot of different methodologies to like inner child work, coactive coaching, like I said, and I can't think of other methods right now at the top of my head, but there's things that you can use as a coach that really help people break through. And so that would be the mindset thing. And then the business side of it, right? So how I talk about it is, the idea is we're going to increase your intuition through your mindset, through your energy, through helping you with those areas, right? Which is really the coaching element when I'm working with someone, is the really helping them tap into their own intuition, and us doing that together through, embodiment, energetic work, but also through the mindset work and the different coaching methodologies to do that work, so that you can get out of your mind, so that you can really see almost like yourself where you're at and help you through that. And as a coach, it's really exciting to be that person that's on that journey with them. So we help with the intuition. The next thing is the influence. And that's, if you want to grow your business, it's really important to be influential, and do that by learning marketing and sales. Because marketing and sales, visibility, getting yourself out there, putting the content out there, that's a skill in itself. And when I'm doing business coaching, it really is about learning how to help people become influential and how they can influence others, and learning how to do that with marketing and sales. And that's my corporate background. I have over 15 years experience in sales and marketing, been a marketing director, sales manager of teams, and I just know that side of things inside and out. And the last part is really about innovation. And that is really taking the creativity and the leadership side of things and helping you become more of a leader, helping you really tap into your creativity. My background is in the advertising and creative industries, and now I also do writing of films. And when you're in the creative industry, you're always trying to innovate. You're always trying to tell stories. You're always trying to be different. And you as different. Others see you as the choice that they want to work with. And so I really help you with that idea of, how do I set myself apart? How do I create my own methodologies and frameworks? How do I innovate in my business? How do I innovate with my creativity and tap into that creativity, so that these are your thoughts, your beliefs, your ways of working that are going to have someone choose you as a coach over someone else, or choose your business or someone else's. And the leadership, right? Leadership is really your ability to own these methodologies, your ability to own your work, own your worth, and be able to showcase it. So that's really what I work the most on with my clients, is tapping into their intuition, influence, and innovation. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely reach out to me. I would love to coach with you. I have a couple packages that I can share with you on the call, and we can also go through a couple things. I do thoughtful selling and on a discovery call. It's really to find out if we work well together, but I can also help you with a couple sales strategies that you might not actually know of, right? So I can look briefly at your business and then see if we're good to coach together. So definitely, if you're interested, feel free to message me, and talk to you soon. Bye.